Hi, today I'm talking to Mariel, and I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself and the types of projects you work on and your role in them.
Thank you. My name is Mariel Plummer. I am currently a manufacturing engineer at a company called RST Instruments in Maple Ridge, BC. And I didn't come through a manufacturing program. I kind of fell into manufacturing. I did the integrated engineering program at UBC. So I come from a little bit of a different background, but it actually worked really well as I kind of segued into the professional world. And my role is kind of jack of all trades at the company. I work on a small team and we kind of do everything. Primarily, our role is to make sure that everybody has what they need in terms of production staff in order to do their job successfully. So there's a lot of that, and we also do a lot of looking at processes. So assembly processes, manufacturing processes, and try to make them as efficient as possible, and make the company more money.
Well, could you give an example of what a manufacturing process looks like for someone who might not be versed in that environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So at our company, we have different layers of manufacturing. So we have a full machine shop. So in that case, manufacturing is, we've got a red seal machinist blasting away on a CNC machine, producing parts that then go over to our instrumentation assembly lines, and that's kind of where we spend the most time. Some of our more simple products are more of like, you take a sensor, you insert it into a housing, attach some cables, pot it with some epoxy, and then do some testing, and it's out the door. Some of them are much more complicated and can take days and days and days to build. In terms of processes, that's what we're looking at, is not the product itself, but how do we put this all together? How do we, go from a raw product to a finished product that the customer is actually going to want and be able to use and does what we say it's going to do?
So in that same vein, then, what does an average day look like for you?
So an average day is very difficult to define because every day is different, which is part of the fun of this job. It's not atypical for me to have like a plan going into the day. It's like, okay, today I'm going to do ABC, and then come out doing JKL and not having even started the others. And so those kind of get pushed to the side. So typically I start the day at about 7 a.m., which is disgusting, but it's when the shift starts. And we do what we call a gemba walk, which is basically, it's a Japanese term that is used a lot in manufacturing. And it's basically all the directors and managers go out on the floor and just see how things are doing. And we talk to the lead hands and make sure that they have what they need to go through the next day. If there's any roadblocks, are they missing something? That's something we can address right there, or address immediately after, so that there's no delays in their production schedule. And then following that, if I'm not stuck in meetings all day, I'll give you today's example. I was building a couple of samples for engineering. We have a design engineering department, and we're looking at redesigning one of our products, and they needed to build a couple of test samples. So I'm out on the floor, I'm building test samples. The other thing I did today was, we have all of our instrumentation needs to be calibrated, and they want to double capacity of one particular instrument, which means that we have to have two calibration fixtures. So I ran around today gathering parts that have previously been machined, so that we can kind of collect everything and build this second calibration frame for them, so that they can now have two people calibrating our rebar strain gauges. And that was today. And tomorrow, I have no idea. I know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'll actually end up doing.
Okay, it sounds like you kind of have a good mix of hands-on working as along with other types like maybe drafting. And I'm wondering, could you give a rough estimate of a breakdown, how much time you spend working with your hands, maybe working at a computer, doing drafting software or Excel stuff, and then also communicating with people like managers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say, in like percentages, ballpark, For me, hands-on is probably 25 to 30%. My colleague who works in the same role, his hands-on is probably 70 to 80%. So it varies quite a bit between person to person. He's much more stronger in the technical stuff than I am. I then take on the load of doing a lot of the computer work, more of the back end support that's needed in terms of I don't know if you've heard of bills of materials, but it's basically the recipes that we need to make our products. I maintain those. I make sure that sales knows what they're doing because sometimes they don't. And that engineering, when they release a new design for a custom product, that is efficiently communicated to the rest of the company in terms of building this recipe with ingredients and directions and all that. So some of it's pretty creative problem solving, and that I'm going to embarrass myself here if I try to add up all these percentages. It's not going to be 100. Probably 40% of my time doing that. And communicating is a huge part of what we do. So not just with managers, but everybody. So we communicate with directors, managers, all the way down to shop floor. And one of our key, it's not a written role, but one of our key functions is to serve as a liaison between all these departments. So if engineering does draw something, design something, and it's weird, they're gonna the people on the floor when they get it, they're gonna come to us and be like, hey, what do we do? And we kind of have to figure it out. And we may talk to engineering, we may work with the shop floor directly, that kind of thing. So that's a big part of our day as well. I don't personally do too much drafting, which is excellent because I am lousy at SolidWorks and happy to admit it. I'll leave it to those that know it better than I do. But in terms of software, Excel, it really depends on the day and what I'm doing. I spent quite a bit of time in Excel today, but that was just today. Some days I might not touch it at all.
Okay, that's really cool to hear that you have like a really comprehensive and kind of well-rounded workplace. What would you say are some of the best things about your job, manufacturing engineering?
One of the best things I like about it is the variability and the fact that it moves so fast and you're constantly changing. So it really does keep you on your toes and you're rarely ever bored. And if you are bored, it's because you're ignoring something and it's intentional. Um, I work with, in my particular company, a fantastic group of people. And I think that makes the workplace. So I would consider them friends. I spend a lot of time there, so we had better be friends. And yeah, and I do like the creative problem solving as well. This isn't working. How can we fit this together? Well, we're going to need to do this. Maybe we need to do this, and redesigning things on the fly is really fun. And just seeing what's capable, what's possible. That's also fun too.
Okay, awesome. Kind of on the flip side, then, what are some of the more challenging things about your position?
Well, the same challenge is that it's hectic. It's very fast paced. So you do have, your manager might give you a list of priorities, and somehow you have to fit them in. And there's only so many hours in the day. So that's a big challenge is trying to figure out how to balance all these things that are being thrown at you. It's the fun and it's definitely the challenge. One of the downsides for me is the early mornings. I don't love it. Uh, but it's the nature of the beast. You're going to find that everywhere you go. Not necessarily 7 a.m., but definitely it's not you don't get to dictate the schedule, basically. And some of the frustration can be in the changing priorities. Like you're like, I worked so hard on this one thing and now it doesn't even matter. So that can get a little bit frustrating when you've really poured your heart into something, and then a week later it's completely irrelevant. So yeah, those are some of the downsides. But on balance, it's definitely a good place for me.
Okay. What would you advise then to students who are considering manufacturing engineering, maybe like to look into, like things to look into, or maybe skills to develop? What would be some advice for them that you'd have?
In terms of skills to develop, you guys are going to cringe when I say this, but communication's a really good one. Written, verbal, being able to, give someone clear, comprehensive instructions on how to do something is really valuable. I know it's not everybody's favorite thing, but it's really appreciated when somebody can do it well. Another thing is, I would advise someone that's thinking about it to try it. It's one of the beautiful things about engineering is at their core, all the different disciplines are fundamentally the same. You get your fluid flows, you get your statics, your dynamics. It doesn't really matter what program you're in. You're probably going to get that unless you're in software, and then that's kind of, I don't know much about software. And so it's versatile. So if you're interested in manufacturing, try it. If it's not for you, you can always swap out. And then I don't think there's anything wrong with that. For me, the way I got started at this particular company is a little bit, again, atypical, but I started as the technical writer. So coming out of UBC Integrated Engineering, went to this role as a technical writer and got to see what all the different departments were doing. And it wasn't like my dream job or anything, but it was definitely a foot in the door. And so I could see what the design engineers were doing, and I could see what the sales engineers were doing. And then what I found was I was really interested in what Gary was doing. And Gary was the manufacturing engineer. And so when a position opened up on the team, I jumped at it. So don't be afraid to try something. It's not the end of the world if it's not for you.
Yeah, something interesting too at UBC. I'm not sure when you graduated, but they've actually recently introduced a manufacturing engineering stream specifically for that. And it's interesting because the courses, at least my friends who have told me about the courses who they're taking them right now, it incorporates all different types of engineering. They take electrical engineering courses, mechanical, even like some computer engineering courses they take. And so you really do get like broad
Mhm.
a broad approach to your studies, which is awesome to
It
see.
You do, and that's the same thing coming out of integrated engineering, is you get this breadth of knowledge and exposure to all the different disciplines. So on paper, it doesn't look like a good fit, but in reality, it really is. Especially like at our company, we do a lot with electronics and we do a lot with mechanical. So it's a really good marriage of the two.
One last question then before we head out. Is there anything that surprised you after you started working that you didn't really expect before you got your job?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing that surprised me was, number one, how much I liked it. And number two, the people I work with. I was expecting it to be a little more competitive in terms of like personal achievements versus collective achievements. It really is not at all. So that was a really pleasant surprise. But, I found the same thing going into engineering school. I was expecting it to be fairly cutthroat and, students like elbowing each other out of the way, but it wasn't. It was a really lovely collaborative atmosphere. And so that's something that really was a pleasant surprise for me.
Yeah, everyone's failing their classes together, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and your insights are really helpful. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.